Okay, picture this. You're underground, maybe heading to work, maybe just crossing town.
Uh-huh.
You feel that rumble, hear the screech, doors slide shut. Just the usual, right, the New York City subway routine.
Yeah, totally normal.
Then this voice comes over the intercom, and it just shatters everything. It's calm, chilling, and suddenly you realize you're trapped.
Oof, that feeling, right. Instantly vulnerable, stuck down there, cut off. It's really visceral.
Absolutely, and that feeling, that's pretty much the launch pad for the film we're diving into today.
Right.
We're taking a deep dive into a movie that took that everyday New York thing, the subway, and just cranked it into this intense pressure cooker, a masterclass in tension.
And as our source material points out, it's also this surprisingly sharp mirror reflecting urban life back in the 70s.
We're talking about the 1974 crime thriller, The Taking of Pelham 123.
Directed by Joseph Sargent, you've got Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw, great cast, adapted from John Godey's novel.
And today, we're working from this detailed review and analysis. It really digs deep, goes beyond just the heist plot.
It gets into the layers.
So our mission here isn't just to retell a cool heist movie.
No.
It's to unpack what this analysis finds so compelling about its critiques. Things like urban chaos, how fragile institutions can be.
And the psychology, right, of the criminals and the people trying to stop them. It's fascinating.
Exactly. Think of it as understanding why this film is seen as such a key snapshot of its time, and honestly, why it still feels relevant.
You really get to see how a pretty simple premise on the surface becomes this complex study. Suspense, sure, but also character and some really pointed social commentary.
So you might be thinking, okay, a film from 1974, why should I care?
Well, the source makes a strong case. It's themes, order under siege, bureaucratic messiness, unexpected heroes.
It feels kind of current, doesn't it?
It really does. Eerily so sometimes.
Okay, let's set the stage then. This analysis we're using, it pegs the film's core identity as this taut, minimalist thriller.
Right. Mostly stuck in the NYC subway system. Runs about, 104 minutes?
Yeah, around there. Genre-wise, it's crime thriller, heist, maybe urban drama too.
And the source really hammers home the subway's role. It's not just a backdrop.
No.
It basically becomes a character. The analysis calls it the urban underworld, a symbol of routine, but also deep vulnerability.
The city's artery. If it stops, everything stops. That's a powerful idea.
Totally. And it instantly becomes this claustrophobic battleground. You feel trapped with them.
One of the big things the source highlights is that central conflict. It's this tension.
Between what?
Between the hijackers' cold precision, their plan, and the city's response, which is often kind of bumbling, bureaucratic, reactive.
Okay. That chaos versus control theme the analysis mentions, that's core.
Exactly. You've got this almost surgical operation hitting head-on with the messy reality of a huge city system trying to cope.
Yeah, a system under incredible stress.
And that's where we meet the players. The analysis breaks down these key character archetypes.
Okay.
First, the hijackers. No names, just colors. Mr. Blue, Mr. Green, Mr. Gray, Mr. Brown.
And the source notes that choice the colors, it's powerful. It emphasizes, depersonalization.
Makes them seem less human.
Yeah, and strategy, hierarchy. It strips away their names, turns them into these, abstract agents of chaos.
And leading them is Mr. Blue, Robert Shaw.
Ice cold, the strategist, the source says he's a former mercenary, just pure control, ruthlessness.
That description.
Yeah.
Death in a tailored coat. Wow. Calm, surgical, chillingly efficient. He's the engine, basically.
Yeah, he drives it. But then the complete contrast is the guy in the middle. Walter Matthau's character, Garber.
The transit cop.
Exactly. The pragmatic everyman. The analysis paints him as rumpled, sarcastic, maybe a bit jaded.
Sounds like Matthau.
Totally. But also underneath, he's quietly competent, moral, grounded.
So he's the ordinary guy rising to the occasion.
Pretty much. Driven by duty, grit, understated compassion. He's the human anchor in all the chaos.
Then there's Mr. Green, Martin Balsam. The analysis calls him the weak link.
Right. He's a disgraced motorman, and he has a cold.
A cold. Seems minor.
Well, the analysis suggests his physical illness mirrors this moral and psychological fragility. And that cold, that little detail, it becomes crucial later for the ending. Poetic, almost.
Interesting. And the last character,
New York City itself. The review really positions the city as this distinct entity. Shifting, noisy, layered. Impatient, fragmented, yeah. It's shown as both a victim of the hijacking and kind of an antagonist in its own right, with its unwieldiness, its bureaucracy.
A place where, as the source puts it, entropy, that tendency towards disorder, feels like the default.
Exactly. It's just part of the fabric of the place in the film.
What's cool is how these characters aren't just, plot devices.
Yeah.
They really embody the film's bigger themes.
Definitely.
Speaking of themes, let's get into that deeper commentary the analysis points out.
Okay. Well, a huge one the source focuses on is the film's critique. Almost satire, really, of institutional inertia, bureaucracy.
How systems just freeze up in a crisis.
Right. Systemic paralysis.
Yeah.
The analysis gives specific examples like the mayor, he's stuck in bed, indecisive.
And it's played for dark comedy, right?
Totally. And then you have the transit authority. Their communication is just clumsy, ineffective. The source argues this really mirrored a cynicism people felt about political leadership back then during crises.
Yeah, you can see that.
And running parallel to that is this feeling of, urban anxiety, paranoia.
The city on edge.
Exactly. Rattled by crime, social tensions bubbling under the surface, infrastructure failing, and this sense that maybe no one's really in charge.
There's also that idea from the source about urban decay as heist theater.
Explain that a bit.
Well, the idea is the crime itself becomes a metaphor. The city's under siege, but not from outsiders. It's people from within the system.
People who know how it works.
Exactly. They know its weaknesses and how to exploit them.
And the analysis connects that to this broader picture of American institutions. It suggests, maybe the real competence isn't always at the top.
Well, with the mid-level folks.
Yeah, the civil servants just doing the hard, thankless work day in, day out.
The source also touches on race, class, cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
Notes the dialogue is very 70s, blunt, sometimes uses caricature.
Mm-hmm. Typical of the era.
But it argues this highlights real fractures, like deep distrust between the public and the state, friction between authorities.
And just the randomness of who suffers when things break down.
It definitely paints a picture of a frayed social fabric, systems struggling.
For sure.
So, okay, how does the film show all this? How does the style amplify the tension and themes? The analysis points to some key craft choices.
Like the visuals.
Yeah, like the constant clock and timer imagery, watches, control room clocks, countdowns. They're everywhere.
Right. It's that constant visual reminder. Time is pressure. Every tick pushes everyone closer to the edge.
Underscores the stakes.
Absolutely. And the sound design is critical, too. That score by David Shire.
Oh, yeah, the jagged jazz-funk soundtrack.
The source calls it out specifically, describes it as the musical embodiment of the tension, the unpredictability.
The fragmentation of modern city life.
Exactly. Calls it one of cinema's most underrated scores. Gets under your skin, Reflects the city's pulse.
It really does. It's not just background music.
No, it feels like the film's nervous system.
Let's talk about a couple of specific moments the analysis highlights. The opening sequence, for instance.
Okay.
You just see people getting on the train. Ordinary. Almost no dialogue, no setup, just glances, train sounds, ticking clocks.
And that score building, that dissonance.
Yeah. The source says it sets the tone immediately. Pay attention. Trust no one. You're dropped into the mundane right before it blows up.
Perfect setup.
And then the hijacking announcement itself. This is Pelham 1, 2, 3. Mr. Blue says it so calmly. The analysis points out how unsettling that precision is. The dread comes not from shouting, but from that quiet, almost like bureaucratic efficiency.
It's the cold calculation. That's what's terrifying.
Right. And that scene with the mayor being indecisive.
Yeah, the dark comedy bit.
The analysis frames that as directly reflecting the film's cynical take on how political leadership can sometimes just stall in a crisis.
It's a sharp jab.
So this whole pressure cooker, how does it finally resolve? The analysis really focuses on the ending, specifically that final freeze frame.
Garber staring at Mr. Green.
Right after Green sneezes.
Achoo, yeah. Seems so small.
It connects him back to that clue mentioned earlier about one hijacker having a cold.
The payoff.
The source calls it this wordless moment of justice. Poetic in how low-key it is. The big plan unravels because of a tiny human thing. A sneeze.
Not some huge shootout, just that. It's clever.
And the analysis puts Pelham in context with other films from that time. Lists movies like
Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico,
Network, The French Connection.
Assault on Precinct 13, even the later Inside Man shares DNA.
Right. It shows Pelham is part of this whole wave of gritty urban thrillers, really grappling with cities and systems under stress in the 70s.
Definitely part of that cinematic moment. Very grounded, very tense.
So the source's final take really sums it up. It says Pelham is way more than just a taut thriller.
Just Keeper.
Yeah. It's a vivid portrait of this wounded, grumbling city under threat from within. Anchored by great performances, a script that balances humor, tension, and insight.
And masterfully done.
It calls it one of the quintessential New York films, a time capsule of urban grit, resilience. And the review gives it a high score, like 9 out of 10.
And emphasizes how modern it still feels, that sense of bureaucratic chaos, the unpredictable human factor.
Still resonates, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking back at this deep dive, drawing on this analysis of The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, what we see is a great thriller, using its plot for more than just thrills.
Mm-hmm. It delivers sharp commentary
on institutions, anxieties of the time, making it this timeless look at chaos, control, and crucially, the human element in a crisis.
And the analysis really flags Garber as that anchor in the storm. It makes the case, that the film suggests real confidence, real leadership. It often comes from those middle-tier people.
Civil servants just doing the job, not always the folks at the very top.
Right. The ones doing the thankless but necessary work.
Which leaves you, the listener, with something to maybe chew on. Does digging into this film make you wonder when things really fall apart?
Yeah.
The quiet competence, the sense of duty in ordinary people doing those tough jobs that's ultimately more reliable, more essential than the official power structures way up high.
That's a good question to end on. Something to think about next time you're on the subway, maybe.